Thanks for joining us this morning. We're excited to talk about the essential guide to contactless ordering today. My name's Steve. I'm the CEO of Bbot, and let's just get right into it. So just a little housekeeping at the top of the hour here on how this works. So we're going to spend the first 30 minutes or so going through some of the core essential features for what makes a great in-venue ordering system. I know this is very top of mind right now for a lot of hoteliers, restaurateurs, and building operators. So we're going to cover all of the quintessential features that make a system like this work really well. If you have questions, we're going to get to those pretty much at the end for the last 10 minutes. But as I'm talking and going through things, feel free to write the questions in the chat. Someone from the Bbot marketing team will categorize them, and at the end, we'll be able to go through and answer your questions. So after the overview, we'll hop into a software demo and show you a little bit of a product that can help accomplish contactless ordering. So Bbot's one of a few excellent products out there in the market right now. And so we'll show you some of the stuff we do and how that complements some of the things we talked about in the beginning part of the presentation. Before we get into what makes a great contactless ordering system, just a little shameless plug here at the top for Bbot. So we're a contactless ordering platform. We're in 750 venues. We do roughly 250,000 transactions a month. Primarily, most of those are in-venue transactions, contactless. We have customers in 5 countries. So we've been doing this since 2018, well before the pandemic, and we'll be continuing to do it well after the pandemic. Right now, we are 6 months into the largest upheaval in casual dining in US history. When we started doing contactless ordering in 2018, it was on the fringes. We were setting up bars in Brooklyn. We were, setting up some outdoor seasonals around New York City. And it was starting to become a pretty big thing, but it was, happening, like not at any sort of exponential rate. But operators around the country were starting to get into it and really understand how they could use contactless ordering to really benefit their guests and their staff. We're in the middle of this pandemic, and this is top of mind for all operators, and it's becoming more important than ever. So let's take a look now that we say contactless ordering is table stakes. So for example, our first ever customer, Tommy, he's an owner of the Brooklyn Barge. When he put in contactless ordering, he was trying to increase order capacity and enable staff to earn more tips. So this is one particular use case where he had an outdoor seasonal spot in Brooklyn, and he was trying to implement a system that would improve his business. Whereas, take a look at Catherine Keys, who's a VP of Food and Beverage Innovation for the PM Hotel Group. When she rolled out contactless ordering in 2018, she was looking merely to provide a better guest experience for her, for primarily business travelers around hotels near airports. And Alex Silverstein here, who's a general manager of Mikkeller Brewery, he was looking to expand service efficiently to new indoor areas. And so what's interesting about these 3 personas is they were all actually looking for a slightly different benefit to putting in this system. So they all have different needs. And what we're going to cover today of the core essentials for contactless ordering is essentially why you need a flexible system so that you can handle the different varying needs of your guests. And as operators, that you run establishments that have a lot of complexity. And whether that's you have an indoor seating area that you want to handle differently than your outdoor seating area, or maybe you have a rooftop that's staffed differently than your inside lounge bar. There's a lot of different things that go that go into an in-venue F&B operation. And we've seen a variety of this over the years, and how contactless ordering systems need to be very flexible. And I think that's the key message that we want to talk about today. So with that, contactless ordering does not equal online ordering. So what do I mean by this? So for contactless ordering, you're the guest, you're with your friends or your family, and you're in person. You're actually in the venue that is providing the hospitality. There's typically servers around, and so servers interact with this system as well as just as the guests. With contactless ordering, there's high expectations for speed and customer service, and there's typically multiple orders per visit. And lastly, it typically requires advanced hardware, as we'll see in a bit. With online ordering, you're by yourself. Well, usually if you're me, I'm by myself, but you might be with your friends at home. There's no servers involved in online ordering, and there's limited human interaction. Like you're Netflix, you're ordering in some burritos, you're hanging out, but it's not like you're out for a night with your drinks with your friends. Typically, you're doing one order for the evening, and for the restaurant side, it doesn't really require advanced hardware. Most of the orders come into a single tablet, and or directly into the POS. But typically, you don't need a ton of extra things to get online ordering up and running. So there's some differences here between the two, and that means that they require a different feature set. So I'm going to now jump into the major things that we think help make the contactless ordering experience better. So the first one is a branded web flow. Now, this is really important because the guests are in your establishment and they want to interact with your brand. So if they came to, Soho House, they want to make sure that they're ordering from the Soho House. Or if they, come to your the Brooklyn Barge, I want to make sure they're ordering from the Brooklyn Barge. So that the first key feature here is a branded URL. As you can see here in the top right, we think that that's very important for, as an operator, building trust with your guests. And so that now when they are entering into the experience, they know they're in your establishment. And we think that there are just a couple of things you need for, in addition to this URL, is a logo, your fonts, and your images. This will create a cohesive experience. As operators, you're always trying to make sure that the experience of the place they're sitting in matches any sort of digital experience. Or as we talk to a lot of restaurateurs, they spend a lot of time on the paper menus. And the paper menus they're really well designed typically. They really spend a lot of time on the fonts, the kerning, the colors. And so you want the digital experience to be similar to that, because that has the guest, gives them added trust when they're about to order on their phone in the venue, which is something that typically they haven't done that many times before. So you want it to feel very branded. So something additional on the branded web flow, and we'll get into this in the software demo in a bit, but you want to keep it as simple as possible and as linear as possible. Because remember, these people are sitting at the table in your venue, so they don't have a ton of time to explore the digital experience. Like, they really want to be getting in the experience and then out of the experience, then back to hanging out with their friends and family. So it's typically just a very linear flow of you enter into the experience via a QR code or the branded URL I just spoke about, which brings you into the menu. And from there, as few clicks as possible in the design of the system you're trying to roll out until you get to the end where you order and pay or start a tab. And keep this experience very, very linear and very simple is important. Whereas with online ordering, you can throw in a few more bells and whistles. You can perhaps ask them to join your loyalty program, or you can, when someone's doing online ordering, they're typically prepared to type in their address, they type in a lot of extra user information. In a contactless ordering environment, you want to strip away as much of that as possible because, again, remember, they're all out with their friends. They don't have time to enter in a bunch of extra fields. So that's part of the key to the whole branded Webflow experience. The next thing you want when you're thinking about rolling out a contactless ordering system, and again, see this little picture on the left-hand side. This is just a rooftop bar in New York City that does contactless ordering. It can get pretty chaotic. Everyone's standing around. There's actually a couple other parts to this setup here. There's the inside. There's an outdoor patio. Here's a little rough floor plan of the actual space on the right. You need to be able to, based on staffing levels, think about where the orders are going to go. So this is a key to the system here to running a really efficient contactless setup. Let me give you an example. So at a certain part of the day, the staff might not be on the roof, especially when it's less busy. The director of operations typically might not want to staff the bar upstairs. So during that time, guests still might want to sit upstairs and enjoy the outdoor area, but the tickets and the items need to be able to route elsewhere. So for example, if I'm sitting at table 301, which is on the roof, and I scan the QR code as a guest at 3 p.m., the rooftop bar is not staffed at that time. So in this case, the orders need to be able to route to the downstairs bar for the downstairs bartender. And the reporting, thinking with your operator hat on, the reporting needs to track the fulfillment center that is fulfilling the item for the back of the house, accounting and inventory. And this will allow the guests to still be able to sit, I can still sit up on the roof or sit out there, but I don't have to staff 2 bartenders at that time, which will be incredibly efficient for our P&L. And so this is a great feature, not only for the guests to be able to sit wherever they want, but also for the operators to increase efficiency in the establishment. Now, if I scan that same QR code at 7 p.m., now, it's nighttime. I as the operator, I do staff the rooftop bar. And now the order will need to route to that bartender. So this sort of software-defined QR code is one of the key things that we think is very important to rolling out a very successful contactless ordering system. And it's because we've seen it over hundreds of customers that as you roll these out, it's not just good enough to put a QR code on every table and render an online checkout flow, because it won't be dynamic enough to meet the needs of your establishment over time. You need to have some logic behind these, and we can show you what that looks like a little more detail during the demo. So then let's say I order at 3 p.m. from table 5 and the outdoor patio section here. So in this case, we can add an additional layer of flexibility where we think that this makes a really good contactless ordering system is the ability for the staff to configure if they want you to come pick up the drink at the bar or pick up the food at the bar in this more casual setting. So in this case, at 3 p.m. from the QR code outside in the patio, we might get a dynamic text message to come up to the bar and grab the food. So this is an example of, you know, multi-use software-defined QR codes in your venue that can really make, as an operator, you more powerful and give you the flexibility you need to run the establishment the way you want. So the next key ingredient here to making a successful contactless ordering system is the ability for the servers to be involved. So what I just described before was, you know, really a guest controlled, scanning the QR code and getting the experience they needed at the time of day they needed it at. But there's one more element. For those of you in the audience that have servers, it's not just a self-service brewery, but you actually are running a casual dining establishment. One of the key things that operators have asked us time and time again is for the ability to involve their servers. So if you think about online ordering or, you know, in-venue phone ordering, the guests are doing most of it, or the, you know, the patron of your place is doing most of it. But with contactless ordering, there's still an element of service that needs to be had, or else it's a little awkward, especially in US culture. So we think one of the key ingredients to making a good contactless ordering system is to get the servers involved, whether that's through like a handheld device or through an interface on their POS terminal. On the right-hand side, I'm just showing the Bbot handheld device, but let's say I'm ordering at the roof 1 table. You know, the guest might have an open tab going or a couple orders already in. So with a server upselling capability of your contactless ordering system, servers should be able to come over to that table and create a tab for the guest or add to an existing tab, or just place an order for the guest. You know, something very natural is like a group going out, having a good time, and the server being able to come over and say, do you all want another round of drinks? And so we think that this is one of the key ingredients to creating a great experience and also driving more revenue for you as operators, because you don't want it to be an experience where, you know, everyone's just ordering by themselves and there's absolutely no interaction left. And so with a system, when you're thinking about rolling out one of these systems, you got to think about, what is my staffing model and how are the staff going to interact with this? And some of the best implementations we've seen have actually created new scripts. So if you think about the traditional dining script is, you know, the host or hostess seats the table, and then typically the server will come over and start everyone with waters and introduce him or herself. And then they'll come back a few minutes later and take the initial order. So that script is kind of out the window when you roll out contactless. Some of the operators we've seen do it well, give the servers and staff a new script. And that is, you know, when the guests sit down, they introduce the system on the table for the guests to order. And then after the guests have placed their first order, roughly before the next order happens, a server comes around, make sure their first order went well, and then asks if they would like something else. And in that case, if they can either order, the guest can order from their phone, or the server can add to that tab, essentially. And this is a key element to rethink the script for casual dining. And it's rapidly changing, and operators are thinking of new scripts as we speak. And so it's exciting to be a part of that and see how they're helping drive the change in the industry. So the next feature to think about is contactless integrations. Okay, so what's different now? So the guests are, you know, before they would use the plastic credit card to order and pay, and now they're on their device more than ever, ordering and paying. This presents a unique opportunity for operators, because operators now are going to be able to capture more data about their guests and personalize the experience. So let's take just a quick category look at all the different tools out there. You know, you have your point of sale systems, you have your loyalty systems, you have your reservation tool, you have your business intelligence tools, your inventory tools, your waitlist tools, and your feedback and intelligence platforms. And there's even more categories than that I left off of here. But now that the guests are ordering on their phone, there are many different integration points to consider. So for example, just take feedback and intelligence as an example. So we work with this company called Yumpingo, and they offer feedback and intelligence. And one of the things you can think about is if I order around with my friends and then maybe I order a burger, how can you, as an operator, collect feedback on if that item was satisfactory for the guests or if it could be improved? So since the guest ordered on their phone, if you've asked them to give you their cell phone number, you know, this integration can now trigger a link to the guest later for a review, which you can see higher conversions then because it's just easy for the guest to do it. Whereas before in the old world, essentially we had the system where, you know, sometimes you might see a server come by and drop a survey off at the end, if you've ever experienced that. Those didn't typically convert very highly. Whether that's just because people are at the end of their meal, they're ready to go. But if you can trigger a text message, you know, at 25 minutes later after the meal, and we've seen actually have a lot higher conversion. So that's just one of, you know, 50 plus integration points to consider when you're rolling out a contactless ordering system. So as an operator, you probably already have 10 to 15 major technologies in your venue. And so you really need to think about how to layer something like this in and not just be a point solution that's going to mess up your accounting team, for example. So it's really important to consider inventory and your POS system as well. Because now people are going to be putting in a lot of orders on this system. And so you need to really think about whatever system you're putting in, how does it integrate with the rest of my stack? Another really important one is the reservation and waitlist. So guests are, especially in New York City right now, just thinking about the waitlist, you know, you really want to think about how to spread out the seating in your establishment right now. So waitlist is a really good tool for that. I know companies like 7 Rooms are offering waitlist, where, you know, people can get on the wait list and your staff can, you know, really help better manage the flow of where people are sitting. But now that they're on the wait list, that's an actual great touch point for your contactless system because they've given their phone number to receive a text message. And now you can actually think about, hey, that's a good time to put the menu in front of them to get them thinking about what they're going to order when they sit down. So this is just a quick overview of, you know, the many different facets of the system and all of the different potential integration touch points. So if you have a particular integration you're thinking about, feel free to drop it in the chat and we'll address it at the end and talk about how a contactless system might integrate with a particular category of software you're thinking about as an operator. All right, so now what you've all been waiting for, a little bit of a software demo. Again, just to put this back up, I'm gonna just show you a simple workflow for contactless and how that works with the kitchen in the back of the house. And then we'll take some questions. Okay, this is actually a shout out. This is a customer of Bbot. It's a rooftop bar in Brooklyn. So again, branded experience. Imagine that everyone on this webinar is hanging out with me. I'm sure it's the funnest thing you can imagine. We're all hanging out on the rooftop bar. and we're sitting at table 11. So we could either scan the QR code or we could just type in the table number. My mom usually chooses to type in the table number. It's simpler for her. When you're thinking about a contactless system, you really want to think about the different entry points for the guest. So either they visit the URL and type in the table number, or they scan a QR code, which brings them right into the menu. So those two entry points you want to make available. What if the camera on their phone is broken and they can't scan the QR code? They still need to be able to travel to the website in a traditional sense. So you see our menu here. It's a little early for a drink, but I might just do it anyway. Let's see what we got. Do a margarita. Get a little aggressive. The tequila floater. So again, the simple menu over here is something you really want to consider. So I'll go here and let's do a frosé. And just very linear approach, very easy to navigate if you want food or drinks. And then after that, you just go ahead and place your order. So something to think about as an operator is where you're going to pre-select your tip to. We've seen in our data that typically whatever the lowest tip amount is, or the middle tip, it's somewhere in between is what your average tip will end up being. And that's what we've seen over the course of hundreds of customers and analyzing their in-venue data. So I'm at table 11, I got my frosé, and I'm ready to order. So if I was showing this on my phone, it would show the Apple Pay button or Google Pay button. I'm on the web, obviously, so with Google Chrome in my demo, I can't actually show the Apple Pay button. So now I'm sitting at the table 11, my order's in, and once the staff accepts it, I'll know that. And then when it's on the way to the table, I'll also get excited about that. So as I click over here, see the frosé is in for the staff. It's in. There's a couple of details to understand here as an operator, because again, it's a new motion to allow guests to be able to just throw in drink orders on their phone. So when it comes in as in this case, a server delivery, meaning the server is going to deliver this to the table. It might also come in as a pickup, which is where the guest is coming to pick it up at the counter. Depending on your establishment, it might be a hotel bar where they pick it up at the counter, or it might be a casual dining environment where the servers are the ones doing the delivery. So once you make the drink, all you have to do is click set on its way. In this case, I'm going to actually refund it and show you what that looks like. So type in a manager PIN. So not anyone can just refund. And then once it's refunded, the guest is notified of that. You might refund it for typically in an environment, you really don't refund that often in this type of service model. But something that can happen, especially if your inventory is out of sync, is I might order the last chicken sandwich of the evening, and so you need a quick system when you're thinking about this. You need a quick system to refund and 86 the item very fast. So one of the really important parts of contactless ordering is a good menu management system for the guests, because they're on their phones looking at your menu. It's not a paper menu anymore. So you need a quick tab here to be able to come in and switch things out of stock really fast. For example, if you have no more gin floaters for the rest of the night, no more, you're out of Allagash white, you need to switch that off. And that needs to dynamically pull that item out of your contactless ordering system for the evening. So this needs to happen in real time. And it's much more important than in an online ordering system. because the volume of orders in your inside of your establishment can happen very fast. So you need a very fast system for that. Okay, a couple other things to note here. So what you just saw was just a simple ordering flow, a very, very simple ordering flow with an order coming in and me as the bartender fulfilling it. I want to just dive in a little deeper on some of the important contactless features for you to consider when you're evaluating systems. So I'm going to jump over to like kind of the back of the house part of the system. We don't have time on this webinar to go through everything that's involved in the back of the house configuration of a system like this, but just a couple things to think about. So where that order just came in, it was a display screen, or we call that a KDS. It's not really a kitchen display system in the traditional sense, because that device would typically be at the server station, where the servers are monitoring all of the orders coming in from the contactless system. The other thing to think about, though, is the server handheld devices and what the servers have for upselling. So in this case, you might want a configurable hardware arrangement where you have orders coming in this case, to that screen I just showed you. And so for that screen, you have a couple components to it. You have the KDS view. That's where those tickets were coming in. I just showed with that, like for example, the frosé with the vodka floater that came into the KDS view. And then we had the menu management view enabled, which is the view where you can turn on and off items, or 86 items. And then lastly, the two other views there that are important, and this is something to think about, is the order control view, which is allowing your staff to turn off individual tables. Sometimes you need to disable a QR code, and just one individual QR code if you need to cut a table off. Maybe they're drinking too much or having too much fun. Or maybe the server needs to take their orders the rest of the evening for whatever reason. So order control is another key part of that. And then lastly, the tip report. This depends on your closeout procedures at the end of the night. So different operators we've seen close out differently. Sometimes they want the tips available on the screen that the staff uses to see all the tips they got from the contactless ordering. Other people disable this because they don't want the staff worrying about the money that's coming in, and the managers close out from the web portal at the end of the evening. So this one is typically optional. This depends on your closeout procedures, on whether you want this kind of screen on your KDS view that's sending your contactless orders. Now, another part of the configuration for your hardware is what the server has. So with the server, you want that same program. You'll see we don't have the ability to create orders from what I showed you all. There's no way to create orders, but for the server's device, they want to be able to actually create orders like a guest can. And also take physical credit cards. So this is called something different in every different contactless ordering system. In Bbot, we say has chipper. But other contactless ordering systems will call it something differently for their server handheld configuration. And then lastly, the stations overview, which is a view that we can show you on the next webinar, not to build up too much suspense, for how the servers can see across the different stations in the restaurant to help manage the experience better. So there's a couple considerations to think about when configuring your hardware for contactless ordering to make sure that it all flows within your establishment properly. So remember back from about 20 minutes ago when I was talking about one of the most important features for a great contactless system is the ability to configure your QR codes. So that is in our system. And again, this looks different in every system out there, but in our system, it looks just like a table that has every QR code. And you can name these whatever you want. So why this is important, think back to Catherine Keyes from the second slide, the VP of Food and Beverage. She needs to render a different experience for the room service versus the lounge bar. So you might need different messaging. So like pretend table 10, or this is room 10, and then this is like table 31. So for room 10 in the hotel, you might need to render different messaging and different messaging for when it's fulfilled, like enjoy your room service order. That gets text to the guest. And which menus show. You need different menus for that QR code and different stations that fulfill that item for that experience. And then for table, let's say in the lounge at table 31, you might want a lounge menu to render, and you might want the fulfillment to be changed to pickup. So maybe I order in the lounge bar and I go pick it up at the counter. Maybe it's a resort. We've seen some resorts do like by the pool, it's pick up by the window, but in the rooms, they run the room service to the rooms. So when you're thinking about your contactless system, think about what the ordering experience should look like from every individual location code on your property. And then make sure that your system that you implement can do that. And this even goes down to the required delivery info. So you might think for a pool bar versus the room service. You might want to, in the pool bar setting, not worry about their name and phone number, but in the room service order, you might want to collect name and phone number at checkout. And this will allow the much larger room service order to, let the staff call a guest if they had any questions about it. So thinking about which fields to add in the flow, depending on where the guest is in the establishment is really important. All right. So there's a lot of great options right now for contactless systems out there. There are, it's, again, as I mentioned, we're 6 months into one of the largest changes in casual dining in US history. There's a lot of good options. And what's really exciting right now is operators are thinking about this in many unique ways. And whether that's from changing the script of what the servers say when they seat you at a restaurant, to thinking about how the experience should be digitally for a guest to go through the checkout flow. There's a lot of really exciting things that are happening in casual dining. We're proud and happy to be a small part of that. And just to recap, the thing that I personally think is the most important is to really create an experience that is just easy for the guest. Remember, this is not an app they're downloading. They're not used to using the same app every day. Like with Uber, I might use Uber enough times where I can go through it without even looking at the app. I can book the car without thinking too much. This is a new system though, and the first time the guest comes to your restaurant, they might have never been there before. They're just walking in off the street because they're hungry. So they need something that is really easy, that they don't have to like relearn and reinvent the wheel. So we really think that this like linear flow to get them in and out of their phone and back to hanging out with their friends is the most important for the guest. And then for the staff, it's the same thing. Your staff they need an easy system. So they don't want to be re-entering orders into the POS. They just want tickets to print where they've always printed. If I'm a bartender, I really, part of my job is to, hang out at the bar and talk to the people sitting at the bar. So when orders come in from the tables, they need to come in on the same printer as the when the server enters it in the POS as if the guest enters it from their phone. So it's really about both. When you're thinking as an operator, it's about both parties. It's about the staff and their workflow and the guests in their workflow, and trying to keep those very easy is the key to a great in-venue contactless system. And we think that the way to keep the staff's experience super easy is just a very highly integrated system that they don't need to run to a separate area of the establishment to go find these mobile orders. And so that those two elements are the primary ingredients to making a great in-venue system. All right, with that, I think we'll end it there. And again, we appreciate everyone's, I know everyone's super busy or enjoying the rest of their August. So we appreciate everyone spending an hour going into the core features of what makes a great contactless ordering system. If you're interested in learning more about Bbot specifically versus like any contactless ordering system, please reach out to sales@bbot.menu, and one of our sales team members will be happy to take you through.